You have one question to answer before touching your phone. Not what's urgent, not what's due. One question, asked by a man who built a nation before breakfast. This is about the difference between a day that happens to you and a day you decide on. 250 years ago, one of the most productive men in American history sat down every morning with a plate, literally a printed chart, that listed the hours of his day. At 5 in the morning, before anything else, he asked himself a single question. The morning question, he wrote, "What good shall I do this day?" Benjamin Franklin was a printer, an inventor, a diplomat, a founder of a nation. He ran newspapers, negotiated treaties, and still found time to invent the lightning rod. And every single morning of his adult life, before the ink was dry on the day, he asked that one question first. Not what's on my calendar. Not what am I dreading. What good shall I do? Franklin kept a little book for this. 13 virtues, one column each, a check mark for every day he failed. Temperance, silence, order. He wasn't chasing perfection. He said himself he never came close. He was chasing the habit of asking. Every morning, the same 5 o'clock question, whether the answer that day was small or enormous. Here's why that question still works. A psychologist at NYU named Gabrielle Oettingen spent years studying people who visualize their best possible day, the productivity gurus, the vision board crowd. And she found something uncomfortable. Pure visualization doesn't help you. It drains you. Your brain treats the imagined win like it already happened, and the motivation leaks out before your feet hit the floor. What actually works is her method. Wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. You name the wish. You picture the outcome. But then, and this is the part almost everyone skips, you name the real obstacle standing in your way. And you build the plan for that obstacle specifically before you need it. Two psychologists across the ocean from each other, Edwin Locke and Gary Latham, spent 35 years and hundreds of studies proving the second half of this. Their finding replicated across factories, sales floors, and operating rooms. Vague goals produce vague effort. Do your best is measurably worse than a hard, specific target. Not because people don't try, but because a vague goal gives the mind no line to measure against, so it settles for whatever feels like enough. Not write more. Write 400 words before 9. Not get healthier. Walk for 20 minutes before the first meeting. The goal has to have edges, or your effort has nowhere to grip. And then there's the filter that decides what earns a place on that list at all. McKeown teaches a 3-word rule for anything that shows up asking for your morning. Clear yes or clear no. Not maybe. Not I probably should. If it's not a clear yes, it's a no, because every yes to something small is a no to the good you are actually capable of doing today. McKeown's own test for this is brutally simple. If the answer to a request isn't a hell yes, it's a no. Most people never apply that filter before 9 in the morning. They apply it at 5 in the afternoon, exhausted, after the day already spent itself on things that only ever earned a sure I guess. By then the filter is useless. The good you could have done already lost its window. Put those 4 together, and you get a morning that isn't reactive. Franklin asks the question. Oettingen forces you to name what will actually get in the way. Locke and Latham demand the target has edges. McKeown clears the noise so the target is even reachable. Think about the version of this that actually plays out in your calendar. 6:40 in the morning. You could open your inbox, 23 unread, 3 marked urgent by someone else's definition of urgent, and let that inbox hand you your day. Or you could ask Franklin's question first. Name the one obstacle in Oettingen's plan before it ambushes you at 11. Put an edge on the goal the way Locke and Latham proved you need to, and run everything else through McKeown's filter before it gets a vote. Same morning, Two completely different days come out the other end. Most people wake up and let the first notification write their agenda for them. Someone else's urgency becomes your morning. By the time you've scrolled through 6 things that feel important, you've spent your clearest hour on someone else's priorities, not yours. Notice what's actually being decided in that scroll. Not whether you'll do good work today. Almost everyone intends to. What's being decided is whose definition of good you're going to work from. Franklin's question puts you back in charge of the definition before anyone else can vote on it. There's a reason this particular founder is worth listening to on this. He wasn't a monk with nothing pulling at him. He ran a printing business, sat on committees, negotiated with kings, and still treated one unhurried question as non-negotiable before any of it started. If the busiest man of his century had time for it, the excuse that you don't isn't really about time. The question itself isn't complicated. It's just early, before the noise gets a vote. So before you open anything today, ask it, out loud if you have to. What good shall I do this day? Then don't stop at the feeling of the answer. Name the one thing standing between you and doing it, the obstacle specifically, not vaguely. And give the good you named an edge, a number, a time, a finish line you can point to before noon. Then run it through the filter. Is this a clear yes? If it's not, let it go before it takes the hour that was supposed to be yours. You won't get this perfect. Franklin didn't either. His own tally book, by his own account, stayed full of check marks against his failures for decades. That was never the point. The point was that he showed up with the question again the next morning and the one after that. The asking is the discipline, not the score. I'll ask you the same question Franklin asked himself 250 years ago. What good shall you do today? Tell me one thing, specific with an edge, down in the comments. I read each one.